Imagine losing everything, not because of a mistake, not because of a scam, but because of your own choice. Now imagine living in a world where nobody knows who you really are, where your titles, your money, your surname mean absolutely nothing. That's exactly what he did. A millionaire, tired of being judged by what he had rather than who he was, decided to disappear. He swaps luxury for simplicity, comfort for uncertainty, and throws himself into a completely different life. But what was supposed to be just an experiment turns into something unexpected, because in the midst of this new reality, he meets someone who sees him beyond his appearance. A woman who doesn't care about his bank account, who wants nothing more than what he really is. And that's when everything changes. The problem? He lied all along. Now he could lose the one thing that no amount of money can buy. Will the truth set him free? Or destroy him? The clink of crystal glasses echoed through the hall, mixed with the buzz of superficial conversations. Expensive clothes, rehearsed smiles, calculated gestures. It was always like this. He watched everything from his corner, holding a glass of wine that he didn't even want to drink. To everyone, he was just another millionaire surrounded by luxury. But inside him, a restlessness was growing. "Have you ever seen someone without money treated with respect?" asked one of the men next to him, laughing as he fiddled with his gold watch. "There isn't. Money is power." He frowned. "What if someone with no money was better than any of us?" The circle of men laughed. "There's no such thing," said another. "Without money, no one is anything." He squeezed the glass between his fingers. This conversation only reinforced what he already suspected. No one there looked beyond their bank balance. Friendships, interests, loves, business. What if you weren't rich? How would you be treated? Doubt plagued his mind. That night, he made up his mind. He would disappear. He would strip himself of his luxury, his perks, his surname. He would live as an ordinary man, far from the privileges he had always known. The next morning, he took a small suitcase, some simple clothes, and left without telling anyone. His destination, a neighborhood where no one knew his name. The first impact came quickly. On the street, people looked away. Some even avoided crossing his path. Without a well-cut suit or an imported car, he seemed invisible. He tried to get a job. He walked into a modest store. "Are we hiring?" he asked the manager. The man looked at his simple clothes without recognizing the man who used to appear on magazine covers. "We're not hiring," he pointed to the sign on the door. "Vacancies open." "I don't think you understand," said the manager impatiently. "We're not hiring you." The rejection came as a shock. He had always believed that competence was enough. Now he saw that looks and status were worth more than any CV. When he finally got a job in a small diner, he felt something different. For the first time, he wasn't a millionaire. He was just an ordinary man. And maybe that was exactly what he needed. The routine at the diner was exhausting. He woke up early, cleaned tables, washed dishes, and served impatient customers. His hands, which used to only sign million-dollar contracts, now carried trays and scrubbed floors. Every muscle ached by the end of the day. At first, he didn't think he could take it, but something inside him changed. For the first time, he felt part of the real world. On his third day at work, he tried to strike up a conversation with one of his colleagues. "How can you stand this pace every day?" The man laughed, wiping a glass. "I have no choice. The bills don't wait." That was the difference. For him, it was an experiment. For the others, it was life. An impatient customer snapped his fingers. "Hey you! I want my coffee now!" He took a deep breath, holding back his irritation. Before, a simple phone call would get a waiter fired. Now he was that waiter. He poured the coffee, but the man wrinkled his nose. "It's cold. Bring another." He reached for the cup, but the customer grabbed his arm. "Hurry up. I haven't got all day." Before he could react, a voice came from behind him. "He'll be right there. You don't have to be rude." He turned and found a woman in an apron, staring at the customer with a firm gaze. The man grumbled but said nothing more. When the customer left, he turned to the woman. "Do you always defend strangers?" She shrugged. "I just don't like people who think they're better than others." He smiled. "You must be angry all the time then." She laughed, holding out her hand. "Elisa." He shook her hand, feeling something different. Pleasure. He didn't know it yet, but that moment would change everything. The days passed, and he began to notice something curious. Elisa treated everyone with respect, regardless of who they were. She wasn't sycophantic with rich clients, nor impatient with those who seemed to have little. This intrigued him. One afternoon, while cleaning a table next to her, he decided to ask, "Do you always treat everyone like that?" She stopped, frowning. "Like what?" "As if they were equal, regardless of whether they were rich or poor." Elisa laughed. "Should I care?" He shrugged. "Most people care. Most people are wrong." She picked up a tray and walked away. He stood still, digesting those words. He'd grown up hearing that money defined a man's worth. But what if it wasn't true? Later, a well-dressed man entered the cafeteria. He recognized him from lavish dinners and events. The customer placed a simple order, but when he was served, he frowned. "This is awful. Bring something else." He held the cup, keeping his cool. "The coffee is the way we always make it, sir." The man snorted. "You don't know who you're talking to, do you?" He kept himself from laughing. If that man only knew. Before he could say anything, Elisa intervened. "If you're not satisfied, I can prepare another." The customer narrowed his eyes. "You're lucky you're pretty, otherwise you wouldn't even be here." His blood boiled. He was about to speak when Elisa grabbed him by the arm, squeezing lightly. "It's not worth it," she muttered. He took a deep breath, controlling his anger. When the customer left, he turned to her. "Do you always swallow frogs like that?" "No, but sometimes fighting doesn't change anything." He realized that Elisa saw the world in a different way, and he wanted to understand that way. Their relationship grew naturally. Work in the cafeteria no longer seemed so heavy when they were together. Conversations flowed, and he noticed something different about Elisa. She didn't complain about her difficult life, nor did she seem to envy the rich customers she served. This fascinated him. One evening, after work, the two of them went out together, walking aimlessly. "Have you always been like this?" he asked. She raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" "Strong. No resentment towards the world." She smiled sideways. "I used to wonder why some people had everything and others nothing. But one day I realized that if I spent my life complaining, nothing would change. So I did what I could. I moved on." He was silent for a moment. "What if you could have everything?" Elisa laughed. "What does it mean to have everything? Huge houses, luxury cars, expensive watches?" He felt a chill in his stomach. She was talking about things he'd always had, but for the first time, he was questioning their value. "Having everything means living in peace," she continued. "And I do." It baffled him. How could someone with so little feel complete? A few days later, something unexpected happened. Elisa came into the cafeteria distressed. "I've lost my house. The landlord raised the rent. I can't afford it." He felt an urge to help but held back. If he revealed who he really was, would she accept his help? "What are you going to do?" he asked. "Find another place. Work harder. You don't seem desperate." She shrugged. I've learned to trust that one way or another, things will work out." He had never met anyone like that. In his world, problems were solved with money. But Elisa faced her difficulties with a faith he didn't understand. At the end of the day, he found her sitting outside, watching the sky. "Do you have anywhere to go today?" She smiled. "Not yet, but it's not the first time I've been through this. I'll find a way." He stared at her in amazement. "You really believe that, don't you?" "It's not a question of believing. It's the only choice I have." And for the first time, he wanted to be more like her. The days passed, and he began to realize the impact Elisa had on his worldview. Before, he saw money as the solution to everything. Now he saw something different, her resilience, her ability to keep going despite the difficulties. One evening, after work, the two of them were sitting at the back of the cafeteria, sharing a cold coffee. "Have you ever had money?" she asked suddenly. He frowned, taking her by surprise. "Why do you ask?" "Because you don't look like someone who grew up with nothing." He looked away, feeling a tightness in his chest. "Let's just say I've seen both sides of the coin." She took a sip of her coffee, watching him curiously. "And which one do you prefer?" He didn't answer straight away. Before, he would have said that wealth was everything. But now, the certainties he carried were crumbling. "I think I'm still trying to find out." Elisa smiled sideways. "That means you already know the answer. You just don't want to admit it." That conversation stirred him. For the first time, he felt vulnerable. Not as someone above the rest, but as an ordinary man dealing with doubts he had never considered. The next day, he saw Elisa looking at a flyer for a technical course. "Thinking of studying?" "Yes, but I can't afford it now." He felt the urge to help her. A single check would solve the problem. But if he did that, how would she react? "Which course?" "Business administration. I want to open my own business one day." He smiled. Elisa had ambition, but not for the money, for the desire to build something of her own. "You'll make it." "I hope so." That night, as he lay in the small bed in the rented room, he realized that Elisa was changing his view of the world. It wasn't money that made someone strong. It was the courage to keep going, even when everything seemed against you, and he didn't know if he'd have that same courage if he were in her shoes. Doubt began to eat away at his thoughts. Every day, he felt closer to Elisa, but the lie he was carrying grew like a weight impossible to ignore. That night, as they closed the cafeteria together, he finally asked, "What would you do if you found out that someone had lied to you?" Elisa frowned, surprised by the sudden question. "It depends." Did he lie to deceive or to understand the world better? He held his breath. She didn't know, but she had described her situation exactly. What if it was someone who didn't want to hurt you, but ended up hiding something important? Elisa crossed her arms thoughtfully. "I think everyone has their reasons. But in the end, the truth always comes out." He looked away, feeling his heart racing. The next day, he tried to distance himself a little, but it was impossible. When he was next to her, he felt different. For the first time in his life, someone saw him beyond his fortune, beyond his status, and he knew that the moment the truth came out, everything could change. The tension grew inside him. While serving a customer, he dropped a glass on the floor. The noise made everyone look up. Elisa approached him. "Are you all right?" He sighed, picking up the shards of glass. "Just distracted. You're not the same as before. Something's bothering you." He wanted to say, he wanted to tell her that he wasn't just any employee, that the money she worked so hard to get was never a problem for him. But how? How could he explain it without seeming to have deceived her? "I'm just tired," he lied. She watched him for a few seconds before sighing. "When you want to talk about it, I'll listen." Guilt squeezed his chest. Elisa trusted him, and he knew that this trust was short-lived. That night, as he looked at his reflection in the mirror, he asked himself the question he feared most. If Elisa knew the truth, would she still look at him the same way? And deep down, he already knew the answer. The weight of the truth was becoming unbearable. He wanted to tell her everything, but the fear of Elisa's reaction paralyzed him. Every conversation felt like a test, every look like a silent question. That afternoon, while they were clearing the tables after work, Elisa suddenly stared at him. "You've been acting strange for days." He forced a smile. "I'm just tired." She shook her head. "No, it's more than that. You're hiding something." Before she could reply, a luxury car parked across the street. It was an exclusive model which few people in the country owned, and, to his misfortune, Elisa saw it. "Look at that car," she muttered, but as she took a closer look, her eyes narrowed. "Wait! That guy who came out of the bank, was he waiting for you?" His heart raced. He looked at the man in the suit who got out of the vehicle and realized too late. It was one of the directors of his company. Elisa noticed the way the man looked at him, the expectation on his face, and then the silence broke. "Who are you?" Her voice came out cold, suspicious. He tried to speak, but the words stuck. "You're not just an employee here, are you?" He took a deep breath, knowing there was no way out. "Elisa, But she was already taking steps back. "How long did you lie to me?" "It wasn't a lie. I just wanted to understand what it was like to live without money." She laughed humorlessly. "Understand? Was this an experiment for you?" He felt a tightness in his chest. "No, at first, maybe. But then I met you, and everything changed." She looked at him as if she didn't recognize him anymore. "I don't know who you are, and I don't think I ever did." Then, without looking back, Elisa left. And for the first time in his life, he realized that no amount of money could fix that. The emptiness Elisa left behind was more than he could bear. For days, he tried to convince himself to give her time, but deep down he knew that something had broken. She never showed up at the cafeteria again. He waited, every shift, every customer, but Elisa never came back. The need to find her consumed him. After work, he went to the old building where she lived, but heard from a neighbor that she had left in a hurry and left no address. He wandered aimlessly through the streets, feeling a weight he had never carried before. He had always had everything he wanted, except this. The next morning, he tried to contact her. He called her number, but it went straight to voicemail. He sent a short message, "Let me explain." No reply. Later, while sitting in his small rented room, he felt his phone vibrate. His heart leapt, but when he looked at the screen, he saw that it wasn't Elisa. "Where the hell have you been?" The voice of his company director sounded irritated. "You've got cancelled meetings, angry shareholders, and a fortune being wasted." He wiped his hand across his face. For weeks, he had ignored that world. Now, it was pulling him back. "I can't go back now." Can't or won't? The question hung in the air. For the first time, he didn't know the answer. That evening, he went to the park where he used to walk with Elisa. He sat on the bench where they had talked so many times. And then, without realizing it, he heard a familiar voice behind him. "You never gave up easily, did you?" He turned around quickly. Elisa was there, her arms crossed, her gaze steady. "Why are you here?" she asked. He took a deep breath. "Because I need you to know that nothing that happened between us was a lie." She hesitated. "But you lied." "I lied about who I was, but not about who I am." She remained silent, and he realized that for the first time since everything fell apart, he had a chance to prove that more than anything he wanted to be true to her. Elisa said nothing for a long time. The silence between them was heavy, as if every unspoken word was building up in the air. He finally broke the tension. "I never wanted to hurt you," she sighed, crossing her arms. "Do you understand how that feels to me? I trusted you. You were someone real. At least, I thought you were." He nodded, the pain visible in his gaze. "I know. But everything I experienced with you was real. You made me see things I'd never realized." She watched him, trying to decipher. "You could have told me from the beginning. And would you have believed it?" She looked away. "I don't know." He took a step forward. "I understood something I'd never seen before. I spent my life believing that money was the only thing that mattered. But then I met you, and you showed me that there are things that can't be bought." Elisa closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, her expression was less hard. "And what do you want now?" He took a deep breath. "I want to do something that matters. Something real." She arched an eyebrow. "And how do you intend to do that?" He hesitated for a moment, then took an envelope out of his pocket and handed it to her. "What's this?" "A scholarship. For the course you wanted. No catches, no strings attached. You deserve this chance." She held the envelope, but didn't open it. "That doesn't change anything." He nodded. I know it doesn't, but it's not to change anything. It's just to help you. She looked at him, uncertain. I need to think. All right, I'll wait. I'll wait. Elisa gave him one last look before walking away, and he stood there, his heart pounding. Perhaps she would never forgive him, but for the first time, he didn't just want to right a wrong. He wanted to do something right, regardless of the outcome. And that was already a change. Time passed slowly after that conversation. He didn't pressure Elisa. He didn't try to force anything. He just waited. One day, while walking near the cafeteria, he saw her sitting outside, looking at a folded piece of paper between her fingers. His heart raced. She noticed him and looked up. I signed up. He stopped. For the course. She nodded. I didn't take it because you paid for it. I took it because it was what I wanted. He smiled, feeling a silent relief. I'm glad of that. She sighed, hesitating before continuing. I've thought a lot. About everything. About us. He held his breath. And I think you've really learned something. He let out a slow breath, trying not to show how much it meant. You taught me. Elisa smiled slightly. So what are you going to do now? He looked around, feeling that this place, the simple work, the routine without luxury, had changed something inside him. I don't know yet. But I do know that I don't want to go back to who I was before. She looked at him for a moment before holding out her hand. So, how about starting with a coffee? He laughed and accepted the invitation, and in that instant he realized that it wasn't about money, status, or proving something to someone. It was about finally finding something that no amount of money could buy, something he didn't want to lose.